President Trump's one big beautiful bill. Congress's one big beautiful bill. We're going to get an update from the Senate Majority Leader, Mr. John Thune, in the great state of South Dakota. Thank you, Senator. We appreciate it very much.
Good to be with you, Larry.
So I hear Memorial Day. I hear July 4th, Independence Day. Frankly, I'd be happy with either one. Can you give us an update? What's your thinking, sir?
Well, you know how many moving parts there are to this, having been through this, and of course, what we're trying to do is extend the fine work that you did back in 2017 and make permanent. But it is, there, and then, of course, the president has some new priorities that he wants addressed in here. And then we're doing a lot of other things. So it's a reconciliation bill, a lot of moving parts. I would love to see us get done with it by the middle of the summer, and then back of my mind at least. But the House is going first, and they're going through the process right now. Then we'll get some product from them, and in the end, we have to pass the same bill, as you know. So, but we want to make sure that we get the 2017 TCJA made permanent. Particularly, you get all those pro-growth provisions, that bonus depreciation and interest deductibility and R&D expensing, things that we had in the 2017 bill, and then some new priorities that the president wants included as well. And then we're going to have some energy stuff in there. We're going to have some spending cuts in there. We'll have a generational investment in border security in there, and something that helps rebuild our military. I
was going to ask you. You mentioned some of the new stuff. I call it Trump 2.0. So he's got some powerful new incentives for business investment, which kind of go hand in hand with reshoring, which is his big trade priority. The immediate 100% depreciation, not just for machinery and equipment, but for building factories, which is pretty amazing. Or the 15% made in America corporate tax. Those are two of my favorites. I think you're seeing some numbers that business is already responding in advance, and then Trump has talked about making it retroactive to January 20th when he first inaugurated. What do you think about that? You think that those can get into the bill?
I think in some fashion, the 15% rate and the accelerated depreciation for buildings, as you said, bonus already covers equipment, that sort of thing, would incentivize onshore manufacturing, which is the president's objective, and one that we all support. So how we make it work within the the constraints that we have when the House passed number, and then the Senate has more sort of flexibility and headroom when it comes to being able to accommodate some of those things. But in the end, it's going to be 218 in the House and 51 in the Senate, as you know. Those are the numbers that matter. But I feel good about being able to accommodate a number of the president's proposals, and particularly want to be helpful on those that are going to stimulate growth.
I mean, two things. One is, so back in 2017, you all didn't really start the tax bill until September. Because remember, the first part of the year was all about repealing Obamacare, which didn't come to pass, et cetera, et cetera. So I look at it now, Senator, you're ahead of the curve. In other words, if you say to me sometime in the summer, I'll say, well, hopefully it's early summer. But that would be still 5 or 6 months better than, look, the last time in 2017, it was a Doug Flutie Hail Mary pass into the end zone, which was caught on about the last legislative day in September, but wasn't soon enough to affect the economy and the middle class in 2018 midterms. So I think you're ahead of the game. If you think sincerely we can get it done in the first half of the year or thereabouts, that's time to put these new incentives into place, and people really start feeling it next year in the midterms.
Yep, and that's why we've got it. And failure's not an option. We have to get it done. From a timing standpoint, it's just aligning. The incentives are all aligned, but in terms of getting the various sort of interests in the House, and the Speaker has a lot of different people who have different equities in this, and then we have the same thing in the Senate. As you know, we've got people who want more spending cuts, people who want slightly different things when it comes to taxes, and so it'll be it's a chess match of some sort of, but we will get this done. And I think in the end, hopefully, it will be by the middle of the summer, because I think that's what you point out is businesses looking for economic certainty. And we want to give them that. And I think
you're already seeing
it.
I think some of these businesses are already anticipating that they're going to get them. Buying business, I don't know if you've seen the numbers, 22% at an annual rate in the first quarter, business equipment. And that's not only the GDP number, that was the industrial production number. These are huge numbers. I've never seen numbers like that. So I think they're looking forward to the new incentives. And by the way, retroactive to January 20th. You think retroactive can sneak in?
Yeah, I think so. It'll be retroactive to January of this year, and then hopefully on those major provisions, permanence.
Yeah,
because
right.
I think that too is a huge priority. And but I'm like you. I think that tax policy, particularly on the business side, ought to be about growth. There ought to be pro-growth. There ought to be incentives to invest. And that's what we're trying to have added to this over and above the things that are already in there that we want to extend and make permanent.
And I would also suggest, if you go back and look at the numbers, the biggest beneficiary, the biggest tax cuts, and the biggest tax cuts in terms of growth, percentage change, okay?
Yep.
My liability of tax was the middle class, the blue-collar workers, and the lower-income workers. I know Democrats look at every tax cut and they say it's a tax cut for the rich. It's not true.
No.
That 2017 bill benefited the middle and lower-income workers more than the upper end. The upper end actually had a very small gain. The middles had like a 10, 12, 13% gain.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at distribution tables and
Yes.
who pays taxes,
Yes.
higher end actually paid more
Yes.
in 2017.
It was progressive, it's a progressive tax code.
And the one thing the Democrats, they are going to be opposed to, of the $4 trillion tax hike that the Americans will see at the end of this year if we don't act, 2.6 trillion of it falls on families making less than $400,000 a year, which they all said, we're never going to, raise taxes. Biden said it. The Democrat leadership's been saying that for a long time. They are just flat out going to be, lying about that and obviously voting against the interest of a lot of the people in this country.
So getting it done.
Got to
John
get it
Thune,
done. Yes, sir.
optimist. You're an optimist.
Well, I got to be, right? When you're Scandinavian, you normally believe life is supposed to be hard, so you got to look for the positive,
You got to herd these Republican cats, Senator.
It'll be interesting, but we'll get there.
All right. We appreciate your coming on set very much. Good to see you.
Thanks, Larry. Good to see you.
All right, Senate Majority Leader, Mr. John Thune. Thanks very much.